I'd like to call to order the North Fair Oaks Community Council, and this is our regular meeting. If we could do a roll call. Irving, can I ask you to do the roll call tonight, please? Yeah.
Sure.
Councilman Rafael Avendano.
Present.
Councilmember Laura Kaplan.
I'm here.
Councilmember Dale Miller.
Here.
Councilmember Esperanza Vasquez.
Present.
And then Chair Linda Lopez.
Present. Okay, so we have one, we always open our meeting with the public comment, and anyone who'd like to speak on actually any topic, it doesn't have to be on the agenda, and you have several minutes, and I only have one speaker slip. So Janet, you have the floor. Mm-hmm.
I have a problem in that the North Fair Oaks Council isn't sufficiently proactive to be effective or useful. And a perfect example of this involves Sister Christina, who has provided innumerable benefits to the community. She, if you can believe it, is now on Rev 11 of her proposal that was approved about 3 years ago to provide parking on the San Francisco PUC right-of-way. A couple of years ago, she modified this to add a few planters to make it a nicer place. Unfortunately, this proposal was miscommunicated by planning and resulted in opposition, even from me. Now she's been told that after all this continual red tape of all these revisions from the county, that she needs to go back through the whole procedure through this council, the Planning Commission, and the Board of Supervisors before she can start construction. This site is a dumping ground that, despite being cleaned up weekly by the Sienna kids, is costing the San Francisco PUC and the county a lot of money. This is absolute nonsense. The North Fair Oaks Council should have a special public meeting to approve this project. It should go to the next Planning Commission agenda as an urgency matter, and then go to the Board of Supervisors as a consent matter on their next meeting so that the work can go ahead. It seems to me that this council is working backwards. When it started, it was supposed to be bringing community concerns to the Board of Supervisors for resolution, acting as a city council. Instead, it's kind of ass backwards in that it's the supervisor who's bringing concerns to the council. And I'm hoping that something changes, and I want Sister Christina's parking and garden to go ahead ASAP with no more shilly-shallying by the county. Thank you.
I have a question, please. The project in regards to parking and, did you mention landscaping? No. Just the parking?
When the Sienna Center was approved by the Board of Supervisors, it was on condition that Sister Christina negotiated an agreement with the San Francisco PUC, which she did. And I believe there were to be 30 parking spots, or some number like that. About 2 years ago, she proposed, based on input from the community, that there be some planters around the edge so that people could plant groceries and things, and that this would also shield the abutting neighbors from lights and make the whole place pleasanter. It wasn't going to be asphalted, it was going to be gravel. It was just to provide parking for that center. And then the planning department got involved, and that's like the kiss of death on anything. And they miscommunicated to the neighborhood that it was going to be, I believe, completely planters and no parking. And of course, everybody got all upset about that. Then it went back, and now it's been back and forth, and forth, and it's absolutely idiotic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for that clarification, Janet. Any other comments from the public? No. Okay, we'll move to the approval of minutes. You have two sets of minutes, April 24th and May 22nd. And does council need a couple of minutes to review?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. I already saw those. Okay. Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion on the April 24th minutes.
There's a clarification on the minutes on April.
Okay.
I was present on April and I was marked absent.
Oh, okay.
That's,
Oh, would someone like to motion to approve with the change? We're just looking at April 24th right now.
I motion to approve the change.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. So the minutes of April 24th are approved with the change that Esperanza was present at the meeting. Okay. And May 22nd meeting, minutes? Yeah, please.
I motion to approve the minutes, May 22nd.
Okay, is there a second to approve the minutes, May 22nd?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all right. The approval of the May 22nd meetings goes with the motion in the second, and I think that is it on the minutes. Okay, so we'll go right into the informational items. Supervisor's report, and Irving, you're reporting today?
Good evening, members of the council. For this past month, in terms of supervisors' reports, just wanted to mention that on May 31st, there was the North Fair Oaks cleanup event. We had over 150 volunteers that came out and supported us. We collected 10,000 pounds of garbage, so that was pretty awesome to just have the community come out and support and just clean up the area of North Fair Oaks. I just want to thank all the sponsors that contributed their time and effort, from the Sheriff's Office to Recycle Works and to many more. And then especially want to thank El Paisano for the burritos, and then as well as Chavez Supermarket for the pan dulce, and then Connoisseur Coffee as well. So, and also to the council as well for coming out and supporting this huge event. On June 3rd, the Board of Supervisors unanimously approved the establishment of the LGBTQ Commission to advise the board on policies and issues related to the LGBTQ community. Another project that actually came up in the month of June was on June 16th. It was the first day that the Fair Oaks Library welcomed. It was one of the 6 summer learning camps where they had the lunch programs that were offered for youths. We had the chance to actually go visit Fair Oaks Library on that first day, and so there was a total of 15 kids that received lunches as well. And part of that curriculum is obviously understanding the importance of nutrition, and also understanding their different, components in terms of what's there for lunch and so forth. So they learn about like the different types of fruits out there. And then last but not least, last night the Redwood City School Board voted to approve on 2 charter petitions. They were both Rocket Ship and KIPP charter organizations. And KIPP petitioned for a K-8 school that will ultimately serve approximately 925 students by 2020. And Rocket Ship petitioned for a K-5 school that will ultimately serve approximately 650 students by 2020. And that is all for the supervisor's reports, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
So I have a question about the cleanup. I wasn't on that committee, nor was I able to attend, but I know that that event was initially conceived by the council as part of the larger picture of educating the community so that we can move forward on this issue. Can you give us any kind of an update on what happened besides collecting garbage in terms of the intent of the project?
Yeah, so we also passed out resource guides by the Recycle Works and Recology. So, when the volunteers came in, they got a reusable bag, and along with the reusable bags, there were items in terms of just 2 bulky item cleanups, if they lived in houses or, in terms of apartment owners. So it had all that explanations in terms of bulky items and how to dispose of that. And then other informations that Recycle Works also provided. And then also there was information in terms of healthy guides by Kaiser Permanente. So they had like a kind of 10-step like healthy type of activity program as well.
I'd like to add to that.
Yeah.
I was part of the cleanup crew as a leader, and some of the things that the community learned was how to track all the garbage that's being picked up. I had a community member just come, and I had her actually track all the garbage that was being picked up as part of our cleanup route, and you wouldn't believe how many cigarette butts are picked up on the floor, just miscellaneous things. They also learned how to call in a certain bulky item, so that was really good. So it's very hands-on as opposed to it being hands-off. And the systematic approach was really good. I really liked it. It was easy to follow. And the training that we had before the event for the leaders was very helpful because some of my friends came to help out as leaders, and they got it. So it was good for them to pass it along to the community.
So it was education, not just information.
Yeah, and you were getting educated about what you're being picked up. What you're picking up as far as garbage.
Great.
What do you mean track you mean track the item?
So each
Or what kind of
each
garbage
leader
it was,
had a
or the areas?
Yeah, no, each leader had they had a clipboard, and you were able to mark off what you picked up.
Oh, I see.
And that's going to go to the state, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So you want to talk further about where that's going to go, that information?
Yeah, so all that information, apparently it's going to be sent to the state, and they're identifying obviously where like the illegal dumping problems are going on throughout the state. So, actually having that cleanup event was very important as a way to send that information to the state so that way they can verify in terms of what are like the illegal dumping problems around the state of California.
Okay, and was code enforcement there? Or, because
No.
that would have been an ideal time also for code enforcement
So anything related to code enforcement, I know that
to identify.
I know that Recycle Works, marked it on the clipboards, and so a lot of people were calling in whether if some of these bulky items were inside the property area, and so that message was relayed back to Recycle Works, and they documented that, and they passed it on to code enforcement.
Yeah.
And I just had one last question from me. The 10,000 pounds, you said? Was that more than like last year?
Yeah, last year was actually 4,000 pounds.
Oh, wow.
So this year was
Okay,
10,000.
yeah.
Does that mean more volunteers or more garbage?
What do you think, Irving?
I think it's just a lot more bulky items. I mean, from last year, obviously there were a lot more volunteers, but I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm hoping to get more information, as soon as Recycle Works, finish up in terms of compiling that information. And so hopefully I'll send that information on to the council.
Okay. Thank you, Councilwoman Laura, for bringing that up, because I think whatever activities that are done, whether small or big, how we analyze that as part of the big picture. And certainly, like, I didn't know that the information was going to be going to the state, and so they're going to do some analysis on illegal dumping. But we can also use that information for our illegal dumping campaign. And so just basically whatever we do, let it not just be an activity, but we use it as best as we can to promote our bigger picture, issues. So thank you very much. Yes,
I'd like to ask you a question. Do you happen to know if those bulky items were picked up at the same location from last year, or was it a different location?
I don't know. I would have to actually ask Recycle Works that information. So
Very good to know, to see,
Yeah.
If there's any improvements on each area or the same.
Yeah.
No improvements. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Good.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Oh, that's, okay, thank you, Irving. Yeah, that's good to see if there's, what the patterns are, really.
Right.
Can use that. Okay, council member reports. Do any council members have anything to report? Well, you kind of reported on your participation in that.
Well, it wasn't just me. I would like
Yeah.
to say that around 40 of our parents and youth showed up to this event, and they had a blast. Being active, picking up garbage, smiling, and making their community look clean. I mean, it's a norm in our community of Marlboro, Devonshire. Our kids like picking up trash, and we like to make our streets look nice. And Recycle Works gave us some new orange bags where we're actually going to be doing some more cleaning up, hopefully less. But we're now using these bags to really keep our streets clean, and it's beautiful to see our kids riding bikes on clean streets. And it's great to see sheriffs riding around making sure that we're safe. So I'd just like to second that it was a great event, and we look forward to doing it again as part of the work that we do at Siena Youth Center.
Okay, thanks, Rafael. Any other report backs? Okay, sheriff's report. Lieutenant Tim Reed.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for having me again, Ms. Jensen, Mr. Torres. On behalf of Sheriff Monks, thank you for having me tonight. And I have the normal stats that we're going to go through. I have a couple of other bits of information, and then I also have the pleasure of introducing my new boss. So we'll quickly, somebody had called and asked Mr. Torres about a helicopter that was flying over the neighborhood.
Oh.
Ms. Lopez, I'm sorry, yeah, you're right. You're right, you did ask that. That was at the end of a pursuit that had come out of Santa Clara County, had run all the way up, and the car was dumped a block or so off El Camino in Atherton. I think we all know what a crime-ridden area Atherton is and how these things happen up there all the time. And that Highway Patrol helicopter had followed that pursuit up and then was helping with we set up a perimeter and searched for the people who had stolen the car. And the helicopter was there using its asset, the light, and that kind of thing, just helping us out. But we found the car, when I say we, law enforcement found the car abandoned, and there was nobody taken into custody, but that's what that was. It came out of Santa Clara County.
Yeah, the annoyance as a resident was that it went on for over 2 hours, and it was a weeknight, and people have to wake up early and go to work and stuff, and that. So I actually called the sheriff's department and complained, and I was actually shocked that the young lady told me she couldn't help me, and I needed to call Santa Clara County.
You
And
called
so,
a dispatch?
Yeah,
Very good.
yeah, because your substation is closed
Yes, ma'am.
after, what time? After 8?
In the evening, no. It's only, there's
Or-
only someone at the desk until 5.
Yeah, so, because this happened between like 10 and 11:30 on a Wednesday night. So I understand that the sheriff's department has to conduct their business, I understand that. But 2.5 hours was crazy for me personally. But I was more concerned that I was referred to call Santa Clara County Sheriff's
ma'am.
Department. That was like, I called the 363-4000, and then I get into the sheriff's, a non-emergency. Yeah, I don't like to call 911 unless
Right, and I've
if it's
actually got some phone numbers
non-emergency.
on suggestion of Ms.
So
Davis.
anyway,
I
that
actually have
was-
some phone numbers for that that we'll
That
go
was
through
the
this evening.
extent of my complaint.
Yes, ma'am. I'm not excited by that either, ma'am.
Yeah.
So quickly, statistics for the month of May. It was actually a nice quiet month. We had 1 assault, only 3 auto burglaries, 2 commercial/residential burglaries. Again, relatively quiet month that way. Issued 408 parking citations. 172 of those were for street sweepers. I know that's always an issue. 50 for blocking fire hydrants. What else are some of the big numbers? 35 for restricted parking. The 2-hour zone on Middlefield, we issued 34 tickets, as well as 36 for parking at crosswalks. So the continued enforcement of parking in the North Fair Oaks area, we're going on with it, and I think that it's actually making a difference. What I'd like to see is the numbers going down, but I've kind of pushed my guys a little harder to kind of keep on the enforcement. So the numbers aren't going down. I think that they're just working a little harder to find them. And on a couple other notes, there was some questions from the public about some different issues. One is, someone asked about the anonymous tip line. There is one. The sheriff's office has an anonymous tip line. It's on our website, but I'll give you the number anyway. It's 800-547-2700. Do that again, 800-547-2700. That's the anonymous tip line for the sheriff's office. Now, however, in a situation like you were describing, Ms. Lopez, where you had an issue that you wanted to talk, but it's not an emergency, a really good number for that is 650-363-4911. That's the direct line into our dispatch center, but when that line rings, they know it's not an emergency call, and they'll be able to handle it in the appropriate order. They may ask you to hold, or it may ring a couple of more times than a 911 call would, but at least you're going to get straight into the dispatch center. You don't have to call 4000, which is actually answered at the hospital, and then the switchboard switches it down to dispatch. So that's a good number. And there's also an abandoned vehicle hotline. I'm pretty sure I've given this number out before, but I wanted to again so that we can continue to combat that issue. And that number is 650-599-7489. And that number is in both English and Spanish, and that's checked 3 or 4 times a week by my community service officers who do my parking enforcement. So we have those numbers that are available. I'm looking at just a couple of the other things that I was able to. Fireworks. Fireworks are illegal in unincorporated San Mateo County. Any types of fireworks are illegal in unincorporated San Mateo County. So hopefully that'll get out via Penn TV that even though they sell them up in San Bruno, and I believe they're also selling them in Pacifica, they are not legal in unincorporated San Mateo County. Are there any questions of the board? On the board? Because again, after I'm done,
I wanted to ask you, how are things going with those new crosswalks?
I don't understand the question.
You know the area in front of the clinic?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure how that works yet. I saw the lights blinking, but I didn't see. I don't quite understand how it works.
The lighted crosswalks?
In front of the clinic,
The ones
is it
I've
going to
seen-
blink if a car wants to cross?
I
or-
think what happens, Ms. Lopez, is somebody at the beginning of the crosswalk hits a button, kind of like you would at the signal, like a regular signal. They hit a button, and that triggers those flashing lights. So that lets cars know, even when it's dark, that somebody's getting ready to enter that intersection.
I was just there and it was flashing and there
It's
was
flashing.
nobody anywhere around, so I was a little confused about how it worked.
I thought it was blinking.
Obviously, inappropriately is how it works. Well, what I'll do is I'll shoot an email up to Joe LaCoco County Roads, and maybe they could take a look at those. We have no actual involvement in the placing or making those work, but I'll certainly push something out to County Roads to ask,
Okay.
see how they can be,
Okay,
see if they're not working properly.
And part of the reason it was confusing is because you've got the crosswalks with the blinking lights on Middlefield, but
Yes,
they're
ma'am.
different. They're a
Yeah.
different type, and so it's like,
Okay. Well, you're right. I mean, if it's going to get confusing for the drivers on Middlefield, that's the last thing we want. So we can take a look at that.
thanks.
Good?
Any other questions?
I do have some, I would like to know if you can give us some information on the incident that happened on about a week and a half ago on 4th Avenue,
Oh, yes.
behind the beauty salon.
Talking about the homicide that occurred?
Yes.
That's currently an active investigation, and I cannot discuss it. There was a homicide at that corner. It's actually, I think it was listed as the 3100 block of Middlefield Road. And there was a homicide there, and we have one person in custody, and that's really all I can say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we heard about that one. So that's, okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. Oh.
This time I want to say thank you, Craig.
Oh, stop it, Ms.
Oh,
Davis.
are you, is this,
Just stop.
excuse me, Jan, is this your comment?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, she wants to make a comment, that's fine.
Always welcome, Ms. Davis, you know that.
That's fine.
I just want to say
She
thank
just wants to say
you,
thank you.
because finally realized about commercial vehicles when they're a no-no. It was even called some places to tell them that they can't dump their vehicles in North Faro. So that's a good thing.
Okay, thank you.
It's an ongoing battle, yes, ma'am.
And the other thing.
Excuse me, Janet, if you actually want to make another comment, I would like you to take the podium.
Oh, sure, come on up here, Ms. Davis. Because we want to get this, we want to
In
get
the
this on
middle of
tape.
his report.
Okay, the other comment I had was when Captain Gallagher got promoted, he was, or just before that, he was going to set up some kind of system where if you had a query like you did, you could call in or you could write an email and there would be some kind of response. And I just wondered if that had died since he got promoted or whether something was going to happen with respect to that. But I'm really happy about the commercial vehicles. And Manuel Ramirez is over the moon with ecstasy over that.
Okay, thank you, Janet.
I don't have any information on that project that Captain Gallagher, now Assistant Sheriff Gallagher, had, but I will check with him as soon as I see him and find out where we're at. I know that on the website, you can click on crime data, and it'll take you have to zoom in. It's not the most user-friendly, but you can actually zoom in and click on different bubbles. And in fact, that crime that we were speaking of earlier, it was listed on that crime data. So it'll bring up there's a residential or attempted residential burglaries, there's a drunken public arrest, things like that. You're going to have to zoom in on the North Fair Oaks area pretty good, but you can see it. And we'll continue to work on that other one, Ms. Davis. So at this time, what I'd like, it's my great pleasure to introduce my new boss and the best captain in the Sheriff's Office, Captain Greg Rothfuss.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. Thank you very much for having me. As Lieutenant Reed said, my name is Greg Rothfuss. I came to the Sheriff's Office in late 2010 when the Sheriff's Office took over policing for the city of San Carlos. I was the municipal police chief of the San Carlos Police Department at the time, and I came over and I've remained the police chief in San Carlos. But with this recent reorganization, you're aware of the promotion of Tom Gallagher, now Assistant Sheriff Gallagher. Probably the largest reorganization in the history of the Sheriff's Office that I'm aware of, certainly within the past 30 years, to create an additional Assistant Sheriff's position. And a lot of that, I think, is going to trickle down to be a great benefit to the communities that we police, including this neighborhood and this community. For example, what we've done is the sheriff has asked for a concept of area command. I'm now the South Area Commander. I'm in charge of all the policing activities that take place south of Highway 92 in the Sheriff's Office jurisdictions, and I'm also in charge of half the detective division. So my responsibility is to coordinate all these assets, who in the past we've been kind of running our own separate kind of operations, and we're really working out more to coordinate that. The other thing that came out of this reorganization that I think will be a benefit for this neighborhood and other neighborhoods is the creation of a night shift watch commander position. We now have a lieutenant who works out on nights. Not every night, he's working 4 nights a week, and his name is Lieutenant Mark Kuykendall, and it really assures that when we have any kind of a major incident during the evening hours, we have a lieutenant on scene. In the past, we've had just sergeants roll out, and then command staff would be called later. So that's been a part of the reorg. My role is going to be very, very similar to that of Tom Gallagher. You have an outstanding lieutenant over your area. I'm here to support Tim, not to do his job. I'm there to support him, and also to coordinate, to help Lieutenant Reed and all the assets in this area to have a more coordinated approach. So. That's it. I hope to see you at future meetings. I'm happy to take any questions, and you can certainly get a hold of me on the website. There's a link to me, and very easy to get a hold of. So, any questions?
Actually, the night shift watch commander, will that person be at the substation? Is that what your intention is?
The night shift watch commander is going to be this is the first time we've had one out, night shift watch commander. And what that person is going to be actually out of Millbrae, I think, is where their office is going to be. But they'll check into Millbrae substation, and then they're out in the county, roaming the county, wherever it's needed. Okay. So this is county-wide assets, and it just depends upon what's going on and what the incidents are in the evening. But it is nice, and it's something we haven't had in the past, to have a lieutenant and a manager on scene right away on a major incident.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
You're welcome the 4th Thursday of each month to our meetings. Thank you. Okay. We'll have the Highway Patrol report. Captain Mike Mascarick.
Good evening, members of the council, Mr. Torres, members of the North Fair Oaks community, and guests. It's a pleasure to be here. First, Ms. Lopez, allow me, if I could, to address some of your concerns, which you had conveyed in regards to the helicopter. Oh, right. While I can't speak specifically to the investigative role that was taken at that particular event, what I can say is our helicopter does get called upon frequently to assist our allied agencies as well as CHP when we need those resources. And while it seems that it was up for a considerable period of time, it's a tremendously important asset because it affords us the opportunity, with all the technology that's on that aircraft, to safely identify suspects in a way that would prevent them from getting into people's homes, or at least to alert the units on the ground where suspects could be, as well as to assist officers and to really add a level of safety for our law enforcement people on the ground, as well as citizens in the community and people who happen to be in the area, to prevent them from encountering the suspect in a way that we wouldn't be able to know what we could see from the air and be able to direct our resources on the ground appropriately. So while it certainly does seem like it was up for an inordinate amount of time, depending on the circumstances, it's not uncommon that you would have something like that take place. And unfortunately, oftentimes it's during hours of darkness when people are trying to sleep. So while I can certainly understand the frustration that you experienced and the inconvenience that might have been present with the noise and whatnot, it's certainly not our intent to keep it up in the air any longer than we need to, but it's to afford the highest level of safety for the community and for our law enforcement partners on the ground. And so if you have any future concerns of that type, if you call 911 on your cell phone, if you are told that it is a CHP resource, if you dial 911 on your cell phone, you'll get CHP dispatch, and we should be able to provide you with maybe more clarifying information as to a time frame, if at all possible, on how long that particular resource might be in your area.
So CHP as opposed to the sheriff?
Well, it depends on particularly where you're standing. I'm not a technology expert, but if, for instance, if you dial 911 on your cell phone, you're on a freeway, it's going to route to one of our call centers. Right. Sometimes it does go to the local municipality, and if you tell them it's a CHP-related event, they can transfer you over. But again, the sheriff's department or the sheriff's dispatcher would not necessarily have possibly the same information that you might be able to get from a CHP dispatcher. That helicopter, by the way, is dispatched out of Napa. So in order for it to get here when we need it, it does travel some distance, and when it's in the area, we want to make full use of it to the extent possible. But we certainly don't want to keep it in an area that's going to, it's not our goal or objective to try to wake up the citizenry of any particular community. It's very expensive to operate. We want it in the air when it's absolutely needed, and when it's not, then it's on the ground waiting to be called by and large.
Okay, thank you.
I'm proud to say, or pleased to say, that our accident picture here in the North Fair Oaks community has seen a downward trend when we compare where we're at year to date for 2013 with where we are today. We've seen a 20% increase roughly in our overall collision picture and a significant decrease in the number of speed-related collisions. Last year at this time we were at 15, now we're down to 2. I attribute that in large part to not only the efforts of the Highway Patrol, but our allied agency partners, particularly the Sheriff's Office, who are very diligent in working with us and having a strong, visible presence in this community, which really affords all of us the presence that law enforcement is there, and for us to be cognizant of speed, distracted driving, driving under the influence, all the things that we want people to be aware of and they don't do. And our Special Enforcement Unit, which consists of 5 motorcycle officers, has been very active in the community as well. It's certainly not our intention to see how many citations we can write, but rather having a strong presence, whether it be through their traffic enforcement efforts, whether it's verbal warnings, whether it's citations that are issued, but to really educate the community, educate people who are driving and passing through the area that there is this law enforcement presence and the necessity for them to obey traffic laws. And so with that, we've seen this decrease in overall number of collisions. Unfortunately, we did in the month of April have a fatality that took place on Middlefield Road. It involved a pedestrian and an automobile. It's one of those that, in my opinion, could have been preventable had the pedestrian utilized a crosswalk, which wasn't the case. And unfortunately, Middlefield Road, particularly during the hours of darkness, can be very hazardous. And if you're not utilizing a crosswalk, if you're just darting out in front of traffic, you really do take your life into your own hands, both figuratively and literally in that regard. I'm also very pleased. We had a very successful showing in working with Mr. Abendano in his group with a very successful bicycle rodeo that the CHP partnered with. We're looking forward to coming out and being a partner in those types of events in the future and really using the resources that we have to educate the public, whether it be children, whether it be adult drivers, whether it be members of our elderly parts of the community, to really afford them a strong idea of what the Highway Patrol can do for them in regards to traffic safety. So again, working collaboratively with our Sheriff's Department, working with our Public Works folks, where Caltrans comes into play, it's a multifaceted approach in utilizing resources of your board and this community to ensure just the highest level of safety that we can afford all of you. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that the council might have. All right.
No,
thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda is code enforcement. Unfortunately, Ana Santiago is home with the flu. She did send an email, and I will just read what she sent. The number of complaints for North Fair Oaks is currently 17, which is about half of what we've had as of last year. We are on target to do more than the previous years. The numbers will increase by the end of the year because our new office starts on Monday, and we will be able to address the North Fair Oaks community concerns as they come in. Oh, I'm sorry, our new officer starts on Monday. I know that didn't sound right. So they're going to have an additional officer working code enforcement. And so she's saying they'll be able to address the community concerns as they come in. I look forward to the next meeting to show improvement in the community. She did email a report. What I can do is pass this on to Irving, and maybe you could just send it out to all the individual council members. Okay. North Fair Oaks forward report. The team is reporting. Can pass this to, oh, I'm sure he has it, but
Reverend Torres, do you have this?
you have them.
Well, obviously, good evening, members of the council. It's my pleasure to update you on one aspect of the North Fair Oaks project that we haven't talked about a whole lot yet. I want to give you a little update on the library expansion that was part of the Measure A effort. We have recently had conceptual plans approved by the Human Services Agency and by the City of Redwood City. Right now, we are working with the Human Services Agency, and our architects have developed what's called a phasing plan. One of the key concerns to the Human Services Agency is that they remain open, that they continue to provide the current services they provided this location throughout the construction process. So that's being developed right now. We anticipate getting approval of that plan within the next week or so. Once that happens, we will be sending the project out for costing. We're going to find out how much the project would cost. That's in anticipation of, if the costs are reasonable, including the project in our budget when the board considers the budget in September. So we're very excited about that, and as soon as we have something firm, I'd be happy to share that with you.
Okay.
So I'd like to turn it over to Ashley Nelly to give an update on the Middlefield Road work.
Good evening, council members. So just as a refresher, North Fair Oaks Forward is an initiative that strives to engage and inform the community on projects and developments happening in North Fair Oaks. And as Peggy said, one of our big focuses is redesign of Middlefield Road. So since our last update, we provided a presentation on the community feedback on the redesign, and that similar presentation has been given to many small groups throughout the month, from June till August. And a lot of the small groups include city councils, school districts, and youth organizations. Additionally, the outreach team has held a meeting this past Tuesday, June 24th, with community partners, business owners, and work group members, and there were over 30 individuals that attended, and it was basically talking about the next steps and if they had any questions on the project, and we're very, very happy that it was a great turnout. Also, the NFO Forward Special Edition newsletter for June was produced and was electronically sent out to more than 700 recipients, and 2,000 copies have been printed out and will be given to community partners. And please be on the lookout for posters, exhibits, and flyers, which will be based on this infographic that you have in front of you. And it's just a very nice way to summarize all the community feedback that we've received, and most importantly, the next steps and how the community can get involved. And all these materials are on our website at nfoforward.org.
Good evening, Council. I just wanted to update you on our upcoming events. So on July 14th, Supervisor Slocum will invite reporters on a walking tour along Middlefield Road to get a firsthand experience walking there. Also on July 17th will be your study session, which will include a presentation by the Department of Public Works on a traffic analysis of the roadway options for Middlefield Road. And then July 24th, we will be hosting a community meeting here during your regularly scheduled monthly meetings, where the community is invited to learn about the traffic analysis and the different roadway options. And currently, we're gearing up our outreach efforts to really encourage the community to attend and get the most people out there that we can. And if you have any questions, please visit our nfoforward.org website. As Ashley mentioned, all the information is posted there, as well as our contact information.
Do you have any questions?
Any questions at this?
No.
Great.
No, I guess not. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Flyer's nice.
Do you want to say that out loud?
Yeah, sure. The flyer is really nice. It's in English and Spanish, and it has pictures. So let's make sure we get this out to our people.
Okay, Parks Department. Marlene Finley. Hello.
Good evening, council members. Thanks for having me here tonight. I'm the new director, for those of you that I haven't met yet. I know I see a lot of familiar faces. The new director for the County Parks Department. I've been in the job about 8 months now. And just a little overview of San Mateo County parks. We have, we're up to 20 parks now and over 17,000 acres, and we have about 2 million visitors a year in our county park system. And two of our newest parks are Friendship Park here in North Fair Oaks and the Moss Beach Playground out on the coast. And I bring these up not only because Friendship Park's right here in North Fair Oaks, but also because these are non-traditional parks for the county park system. They're what some call pocket parks or mini parks, kind of an urban setting. Even with the Moss Beach Playground, there's a lot of facilities there. And as being non-traditional, it hasn't been in our mission or our policy for county parks to manage these kind of parks. And I brought this up to the, our Parks Commission, our advisory council to the Board of Supervisors, so that we could legitimize having mini parks, urban parks, pocket parks as part of our county park portfolio. So a subcommittee was formed, and they've met once in order to provide a recommendation to the Parks Commission and then on to the Board of Supervisors. And two of the members on this subcommittee are from North Fair Oaks, Laura Kaplan being one of them. And so we have two members, and they're both represent the Fair Oaks Beautification Association as well. So I'd like to get another representative from North Fair Oaks as well, because I think it's really important to be on this subcommittee as we look towards the future and legitimize this type of park in the county park system. Also, I wanted to share that on May 28th, I met with the North Fair Oaks Parks Work Group. That was a specific work group with the North Fair Oaks Forward, I believe. And the group, Trust for Public Lands, the nonprofit, was transitioning, they were completing their project here in North Fair Oaks. So they gave a summary of the work that they did, the meetings that were held, the survey where over 500 people responded here in the community, and provided input on what parks they'd like to see in the future and what types of parks and play areas and plazas and gardens and trails. So they've given me all that information, TPL. And so county parks, I'd be happy to continue working either with the Parks Work Group or any other community group here in North Fair Oaks to help this unincorporated area. So you might wonder, okay, well, what's next? Here we have a vision, we have a plan, there's a call to action. Well, I presented at this meeting on the 28th what I saw as the path forward. And the first step is we need this policy for county parks to legitimize mini parks and urban parks. The second step is I want to make sure that as we manage, as the county parks works with our partners to manage Friendship Park, that we do a really good job and we learn. There's lessons learned so that we can grow from that, and we can have a chance to learn. And one of those things is we're getting an agreement in place with Collective Roots, one of the partner organizations. So we're using MOU or agreements with community groups as we work as partners in these newer type parks. So, and the third thing is I want to keep the Parks Working Group together and work on a budget proposal for the 2015-2017 budget cycle. So any parks that were part of the vision that we want to take forward, I want to wrap that into our budget for parks for 2015 to 2017. So that's another way that we make it happen, take action. Beginning next month, I will participate with the North Fair Oaks roundtable meetings, the roundtable meetings for North Fair Oaks Forward. I was just invited today, so I'm looking forward to that. And I want to continue to grow advocacy, support, partners, and look for grant opportunities to leverage county funds with donations. And an example of that is that just last week, there was a call out for state grants available, $3 million on Land and Water Conservation Fund money for parks, just like we could have in North Fair Oaks. But we're not ready yet. We don't have CEQA done. We don't have NEPA done. You have to have all that analysis done and be ready with an on-the-shelf project to go for funding. So this gives us a year to be ready to go for grants like that. Another part to that advocacy and partnership is Jean Frazier, the Director of the Health Services for the county, and I are preparing to sign the Healthy Parks, Healthy People initiative and become one of the parks and health services in the Bay Area in this initiative for Healthy Parks, Healthy People. And there's a lot of ideas and tools and a whole network of people that are doing this Healthy Parks, Healthy People. So we want to do that as well. So that's, in a nutshell, that's kind of how I see the path forward. And I wanted to express that I'm excited to be working here in North Fair Oaks with all of you and the community. Any questions?
Yes. That's a big nutshell. I mean, that's a lot.
That's the way I roll.
I mean, yeah, that's a lot. Number one was policy, collective roots, the second item you mentioned. Is that specifically to come up with the infrastructure to maintain Friendship Park?
No, it's part of it. Collective roots.
Because you mentioned Friendship Park, but so.
So we have a lot of partners that made Friendship Park happen.
Okay.
Rotary Club, Sheriff's Athletic League, Collective Roots, many people came together. And Collective Roots in particular has hosted and are managing the 31 community garden beds in Friendship Park. So they're responsible for that part of Friendship Park. And in doing so, we want to have an agreement in place between County Parks, who holds the revocable license, the responsibility.
Oh, I see.
So that we have our partnership documented.
Okay, I thought that was already
No,
in
we're not
place.
there yet.
Oh,
but
okay.
We have a verbal agreement, an informal working relationship, and everything's going fine. But we need to be more professional in having written agreements.
Good, because some people come and some people go, and if it's not in place, then whoever comes into the picture, you know, we want to make sure that, and that's what I mean by infrastructure on these activities, that it's in place, the system's in place, whoever comes into the picture, whoever the players are, it's in place to do this. So great, and I didn't realize that hadn't happened yet, but that's great. One other question, Marlene. Sure. So you got the Parks Work Group that was set up as part of the North Fair Oaks Community Plan. That was one of the work groups. You took over basically, or they handed everything to you? All their consultant work and analysis and recommendations and everything?
Yeah, the TPL consultants provided me their files.
Okay.
So I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, my question was to follow up on that because I was on that work group and
So was I.
went out of the country, didn't get to the last meeting.
Me too.
Also kind of wanted to hear, I hear that you're saying you would like to see that work group continue. How will that happen? Are you going to be taking the lead on that since TPL is out of the picture now, or who or what?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. We're not in a position to have a meeting right now because I want to get that policy in place in county parks. So that's my number one, to legitimize it. And the reason why it's that system that you mentioned, Councilmember Chair Lopez, we have to have that infrastructure in place because when budgets go down, if you don't have a policy to hook it in, those are the first things that we lose, or things that aren't part of our policy.
But forgive me, but does it not make sense to reconvene that work group? Because part of the discussion in that work group was to have policies and system in place so that not only are parks and green areas created in North Fair Oaks, but the maintenance of them, and so they can stay for years and years and years. We have to keep in mind the North Fair Oaks Community Plan. The intent is to carry it out for the next 30 years. So I'm just thinking about. I mean, you sound like you already have a plan to get the policy in place, But I guess I just want to make sure that the language is in that policy that reflected the, months of meeting with the group of people from North Fair Oaks. Do you know
That's
what I'm
why we
saying?
need members on
Yeah.
that subcommittee,
Oh,
because
okay.
that's
So
that's
that's
the
come up
government.
with a draft.
So
and
then the
present
subcommittee's going to do
to-
that. Okay.
Right, that's the governance
missed that.
structure.
So
And I
maybe-
think that's the right way to go, because we
Okay.
have a Parks Commission and that reports to the Board of Supervisors.
And maybe someone from that original Parks Work Group can help fill out that subcommittee. And because I know we need someone also from the other side.
That's what I'd really
Okay.
like to see. We need one
Sure.
more person on that
And as well
subcommittee.
as someone from the other side, from the coast side, I think, is what we had talked about.
Right.
So maybe someone in the Parks Work Group could be.
Yeah, so we'll follow up on
Okay.
that. And Raphael has a question.
Okay.
Welcome. I'm
Thank
really
you.
excited you're here. I'm a big advocate of parks. A lot of people know this. And I'm actually interested in learning more about the subcommittee and being involved. I have two questions.
Sure.
My first question is Measure AA passed, and I was wondering if open space is going to work with San Mateo County Parks to help you guys out in any way.
That's a great question. We work with our with the Peninsula Working Group, which is Peninsula Open Space Trust, State Parks, Mid-Penn, San Mateo County Parks, and the Coastal Conservancy, and GGNRA, Golden Gate National Recreation Area. So we work together at that scale, and we're having a meeting in late July to identify some of our priority projects that we're going to work on together to leverage.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Another of my questions is I'm really interested in how we can make Memorial Park accessible for the people of North Fair Oaks.
Oh.
And I want to get together with you, and I want to educate our people on how beautiful 15 minutes away we have it.
Yeah.
So I would be really interested in meeting with you and drawing some stuff up.
Great.
And making stuff happen.
Yeah, we have some ideas about that. We're
Okay.
thinking like a banana slug wagon,
Yeah.
a big wagon with a banana slug on it that can take kids out to the parks that they don't get to go to, and some programs. So I'd love to meet with you on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Marlene.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank
very
you.
much. Okay, we have next on our agenda information item regarding bylaws and governance. And we have a representative from Office of County Counsel, John Nebeling.
Nebeling, that's right.
Nebeling.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening, Chair Lopez, members of the council, Mr. Torres, Ms. Jensen. Thanks for having me here this evening. And although this is listed under action item, I think that's something I didn't
Yeah.
catch as I was looking at the
Right.
agenda. It's actually, as you said, an information item. And I understand that the purpose of the conversation this evening is as we roll towards the July meeting, which your bylaws call out specifically for organizational issues with respect to the council, taking a look at issues of membership and quorum. I know that there have been some meetings over the course of the last several months, I guess, where there have been questions about achieving a quorum and things that we might do about that in light of the fact that a quorum is necessary, of course, to conduct your business. And we were taking a look the other day at the bylaws and sort of trying to think creatively about ways we might address this issue. And one of the things that we noted, Mr. Torres' predecessor and some of you all who were on the council in years past had the foresight to include in your bylaws some flexibility with respect to membership. And one of the things you might consider year to year to year is how big a council do you want to have? Because your quorum is driven by your membership. You need to have essentially a majority of your members present effectively at any particular meeting in order to have a quorum. So I wanted to take the opportunity to just suggest to you as we roll into the July meeting, think about whether or not that's something you might want to include as an action item on your agenda, a consideration of your membership, how many members you have. I'm honestly off the top of my head now, and I'm embarrassed to say it, can't recall exactly what the range was. I think it was as many as 11.
I can read it, John.
That would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's Article 3 under Membership, Section 1. The Community Council shall have a designated membership of designated membership of no fewer than 5 members and no more than 9 members, as provided in county resolution, so on.
So I guess the question, Chair Lopez, was whether or not you wanted to consider next month taking a look at that as a potential action item, setting your membership such that you have a greater sense of certainty that you'll be able to hit your quorum for your meetings and your study sessions, et cetera. So I just wanted the opportunity to have a discussion around that and whether or not, again, you wanted to provide any guidance to us as staff, to you, in terms of bringing something back to you next month.
Well, I have a question about that. Maybe the others know the answer to this, but I know that we have 2 people listed on our membership. One is a youth member who I understand is non-voting, and another is on leave of absence. So how would those 2 people get counted in terms of calculating quorum?
Well, the quorum is actually driven off of voting membership. So that would answer your first question. The second is leave of absence isn't actually something that's recognized in your bylaws as sort of subtracting from your membership as you're trying to figure out your quorum. So if you've got a member on leave of absence, that member is nevertheless going to be counted as you're trying to figure out whether or not you've hit your quorum. So you can't back that person out. Does that answer your question?
Well, yes, and it does create a problem for us. So I don't know what other solutions there might be for that. Do you have any suggestions on something like that? Because
you mean that they're on absence? Yeah.
Well, there's no problem with you all acknowledging that somebody's on a leave of absence. That in and of itself is not a legal problem per se. It just, again, creates a practical problem to the extent that assume that's your 9th member and you're just consistently having trouble mustering 5 people because people are in and out of town and what have you. Again, short of sort of taking an action to determine you're going to eliminate that position on the council for the year. And that's the nice thing, again, about this being a year-to-year-to-year thing. You can always come back a year later and expand your membership up to 9. And,
but it creates a problem for that entire year. There's no way out of that?
That's true. Because, again, the way your bylaws are written, it's something done at your annual sort of organizational meeting in July. So it does, there's flexibility, but not to the extent of being able to do this sort of month to month.
Yeah, that actually is the other language in the bylaws, that the designated membership of council shall be set at the council's regular meeting in July of each year, and the designated number of members shall neither be increased nor decreased until the council's regular meeting in July.
But what about replacements? Mid-year replacements.
Mid-year replacements, that actually is something that of course, the Board of Supervisors has the discretion to do. If you had a vacancy that was created owing to somebody perhaps moving to a different location outside of North Fair Oaks, or somebody resigned for some other reason, certainly you could have a replacement that the board could appoint if the board chose to, mid-year.
Okay, well, so I think we're coming up with a list of some things that we will need to discuss. And what I can do is, actually I can, just from what some of the comments I've heard, I'll be sending a document to Irving, and then that can be forwarded so we can start to look at what we're going to need to do to make changes. Because there is also not only the fact that our youth member doesn't have voting rights, that may be something we want to change, but also there was some discussion about having a second youth council, youth member on the council. So that's correct? Yeah. I mean, that's a possibility. So
those still wouldn't currently have voting rights. I think, for terms of the quorum,
that's something that we need to
discuss.
Think. And I think it would be appropriate to bring this up at our July study session, and we can discuss this. Yeah.
So just for point of information, in the month of July, you do have the traffic analysis presented by Public Works, and then you have that community meeting about the Millfield Road redesign.
But we need to take action on this for our July meeting, so I think we can handle it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. need to.
Through the president,
Right, exactly.
one option might be you could have a business meeting that starts possibly at 6:30, and the community meeting could start at 7, or you could work with Irving on setting up an agenda that maybe gives you a little more time for your next meeting in July.
Okay, well, let's, we can email and see what adjustments we can make. If we were to have a business meeting at 6:30 on our regular study session night, is that going to be a conflict for anyone?
What's the date again?
Yeah, okay. So that may be a possibility, because I don't know the timeline involved for the analysis piece at that particular meeting. So, okay, so we'll make some adjustments, just so the point is that we study it and get it done in July. Yeah, per the bylaws. Right, John?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have a question? Oh.
Yeah, I think that just adding to what Linda says, having a very strong logistical plan for the meeting, for the study session, will be very important for us to accomplish what we need to do.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so John, I guess you're going to stay there.
Wow, great.
This is an action item. Consideration and action on an application for a certificate of public convenience or necessity at 3201 El Camino Real, Menlo Park. And this is the corner of 5th and El Camino, and it's the Shell gas station, the newly renovated, rebuilt Shell gas station. And John is going to present.
I hope I'm going to present a PowerPoint. Let's see if I...
And Tiari Pena is not here tonight.
No, ma'am.
Okay. I thought we were going to have someone from planning.
I know, just hoping I would, but that's okay.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Thank you. Again, thank you for having me here this evening. I'm John Niblin. I'm one of the chief deputies in the Office of the County Council, and as the
This is it. Did you get
as you can see, I'm here to talk about this particular agenda item, and this is your recommendation, or your opportunity to make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors regarding a request for a determination of public convenience or necessity. By way of a little background, as Chair Lopez was indicating, the predicate fact here is that AV Energy, LLC, has applied to the State Department of Alcohol Beverage Control, we commonly refer to that as ABC, for an off-sale beer and wine license, which is to say a license to sell beer or wine for consumption off the premises. This is as distinguished from on sale, that's typically at a restaurant or a place where you're actually consuming it on the facility. And again, the business is at 3201 El Camino Real in unincorporated Menlo Park. So, broadly speaking, it's state law that governs the issuance of liquor licenses. Now, while state law does require that outlets comply with local zoning and things like that, putting that zoning consideration aside, it's the state typically that makes a determination about whether or not to issue a liquor license. However, the state law also recognizes in the Business and Professions Code that the public welfare requires that there be a limit on the number of outlets licensed for the off-sale of beer and wine. So there's a citation there to the extent it's helpful. Broadly speaking, we're talking about one license for every 2,500 county residents in the unincorporated area. That's, again, sort of the broad test or standard. And to sort of build on that, the state can't issue additional off-sale beer and wine licenses beyond that ratio I was just describing when there's an, quote, undue concentration, unless a local agency determines that that additional license would serve the public convenience or necessity. So what's it mean when we're talking about an undue concentration? It's one of two things. Sometimes you have both, as in the instant case. Are we dealing with a, quote, high crime area, which is to say that the reported crimes in the census tract are at least 20% higher than the average for the entire jurisdiction? Or are we dealing with a large number of an already existing large number of existing licenses for outlets in the area. So what you're looking at there is kind of the ratio of existing licenses in the affected census tract to the population, and you compare it basically to the ratio county-wide. And if there's a discrepancy there, then you've got an undue concentration. So looking at these factors in the context of our particular case, and if you wanted to follow along, I don't know if you all have the letter that I sent to Chair Lopez through Mr. Torres, but you can see these numbers are essentially pulled right out of this form that you're looking at here. So again, we're talking about an application for the off-sale beer and wine. You look at the total number of reported crimes in the jurisdiction. As you can see on your form here, it's 697 total crimes. And I'm looking at block 15 on your form. So about halfway down to the far right there. And there are 12 reporting districts in our particular county, unincorporated county. The average number of crimes per district is 58.08, as you can see as you follow along in block 16. I don't have my reading glasses, but I think it's block 16. Yeah, block 16. So 120% of that average number would be 69.69 reported offenses. In our particular district, we're talking about 125. So you're quite a ways over that, which takes you into sort of this undue concentration sort of territory I was talking about earlier. And then just looking at the number of licenses in the already existing in the census tract we're talking about. And again, it's sort of done as a basic sort of ratio comparison. If you compare sort of the number of licenses kind of on average throughout the county, we'd be talking about 4 licenses in this tract. There are actually 12. So that's kind of your baseline that you're looking at. So what do you do? What's the, and what we've developed here in our county is a process whereby we make a determination as to whether or not the public convenience or necessity would be served by granting the requested license. The Board of Supervisors ultimately makes that determination. But the process that the Board of Supervisors has set up through instruction to county staff, including county council and planning, is that we solicit a recommendation from the affected Community Advisory Council, in this case the North Fair Oaks Community Council, and we also ask the sheriff for the sheriff's perspective. What happens then is the Community Council makes a recommendation, which we then forward on to the Board of Supervisors, who ultimately makes the determination. So that's what we're here tonight for, is the opportunity to hear from you all, to request from you essentially a recommendation that we can forward on to the Board of Supervisors. So, you know, I think the most salient question, or there are probably a lot of salient questions you have, but a salient question I suppose you'd have is, well, what is it that constitutes public convenience or necessity? How do we, what standards might we apply in arriving at all this? What, interestingly, considering how important this is, the Business and Professions Code itself doesn't define public convenience or necessity. On the other hand, there are a number of factors that various jurisdictions have historically looked at and that you all as a council have historically looked at as you consider this. And here are some, and this is just a beginning template, frankly. There might be other factors that you all consider relevant that you'd want to add to the mix. Your view regarding whether the issuance of the license would result in the provision of a service that's needed, that's not currently adequately provided. You might consider sort of the economic benefits that might, in your perspective, flow from the issuance of another license in the area, versus, or weighed against, you know, potential negative impacts that might flow from that very action. The extent to which the issuance of a license might or might not be detrimental or supportive of the character of the area and in harmony with the general plan. Any special or unusual circumstances that ought to be considered. So again, that's sort of a starting point for you all. The burden of proof in establishing that the public convenience or necessity would be advanced by all this actually lies with the applicant. I was pleased to see Mr. Eshu is here today. He represents the applicant, and certainly he'll have some stuff to say to you with respect to all this. But certainly happy to entertain any technical questions you might have at this point. But that's what I have on behalf of staff, at least to this point.
Okay. So do any council member have questions for John just on what he's presented?
The gas station that was being, that is being renovated had a liquor license for beer at least. Is that transferable?
Well, it's a different operator, so I don't believe that even if it was to be transferred, it would still require this PCN process. But certainly, I would consider that would be a relevant factor for you to consider, the fact that there may have already been a license there. But the short answer is it doesn't obviate or doesn't eliminate the need for this process.
And what is the recommendation of the sheriff?
My recollection of the recommendation of the sheriff was, considering the crime in the area, was that that be considered significantly by the Board of Supervisors. I can't remember if it was a straight-up recommendation for denial, but they certainly cited the crime in the area as a significant concern.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, John. I'm going to... Mr. Eshu, George Eshu, the attorney representing the
Yes,
applicant.
George Eshu, I'm
going to,
representing the
present.
owner and the council. Mr. Torres, thank you for notifying me. By the way, I did speak to the sheriff himself, to Mr. Greg Monks, and he indicated because of the location where it was and the type of business that it was a convenience operation. The principal business is not selling beer and wine, that he didn't believe he'd have an objection. He's going to do some more checking, but I already spoke to the sheriff himself, and it looks like it's going to be positive in our favor. Let me go through a couple of the things that are important here and what my clients have done. First of all, when they started looking at this, they contacted ABC and talked to ABC and asked ABC how and what you do to get a license for that location. And ABC had them buy another license within the county so that there wouldn't be any new licenses created in the county. So that's the license that would be transferred over to this location. Additionally, what we did, they hired me to go, and I spoke and spent some time speaking to the planning director. I spoke to Tiara Pena, who is the most knowledgeable person in this whole area, and she, in fact, had me speak to the ABC, and I've spoken to this woman. Last name's Italian, first name is Joan. She's been calls me George now on the phone because we speak all the time. Because I've been following it and monitoring to see whether there's been any objections. Well, you got to put this station in context. There may be. It's over in a location which is basically retail on the El Camino there. I know that the 2,500 number gets thrown out, but just within even a shorter distance in some locations in Fair Oaks is the city of Atherton, where there's 0 businesses. And a lot of people who buy gas will stop at a convenience store. Now, something like 95% of the material things that they sell in that convenience store are not beer. And it says beer and wine, but my clients don't expect that they're going to sell very much wine there. It's going to be primarily beer. People go in, they buy Cokes, sometimes they'll buy beer. And so we look at the convenience, and this is a convenience store, and that's the whole purpose of this, is to be something convenient. Secondly, we looked at the economic impact, because when my clients went to the ABC to find out whether or not they could get a license for that location, that was one of the considerations in deciding to build a larger convenience store. With the larger convenience store, before, and I think a lot of you are familiar with that station. I think some of you have actually been using that station as a gas station for years. But in any event, before this new facility was built, the station employed 3 individuals plus 1 manager. What my clients are going to do with the new convenience store is we're going to have 18 employees. We're going to have one manager and one additional manager. And the other thing, since we're coming to to this council for approval, or a recommendation, actually the approval comes from the Board of Supervisors, as council indicated. What we're going to do is we will make a commitment that all of the new jobs, and we think of, because the existing people will still be working there, but we're going to hire 15 additional people. We'll hire them out of, assuming that people qualify and that there shouldn't be any problem, we will hire them out of the Fair Oaks district. It's just an important thing. I think it's what you do is, if you're part of it, we want to be part of it. By the way, I've been impressed tonight. I've been to zillions of council meetings. And sometimes I've been to a few, and I won't say where everybody's in disagreement. Here, everybody seems to be working together. So we, in the same spirit, the economic impact for this district would be positive. The positive position would be we would hire people from within this district for the station. Additionally, we have what we have devised, and I should put my glasses on to look at my notes, but I think I know all the facts without looking at my notes. Basically, what we have is we're going to have a security system where we're going to have 24 cameras, so that security is extremely going to be very good there, along with always having at least 3 cashiers working there at all times. That's an important thing. We're doing a lot more, although this is not really a liquor store. This is really what it is a convenience store. But nevertheless, there's always a worry about convenience stores, and so and one of the problems is security. And so we are going to provide very high security for that location. I mean, it's a nice area. It's right there on the El Camino, and we know that there's other stores. We know when you talk about concentration, there are some other stores. There's a grocery store which is like us. It doesn't primarily sell liquor, but they probably will sell a lot more liquor than we do. There's You Save Liquors, which is a full liquor store. They're clients of mine, in fact, so they have no objections. They're just down the street because they're a liquor store. And then there is the K&L, which is a wine store that sells bulk wine. They're really a little different. Ours is a convenience store. It's definitely not, the primary thing is not beer and wine. However, the beer and wine does help in making it, you know, it's just one of the other economic factors that makes a business be successful. Additionally, I'd like to point out that although Awe Energy is an LLC with its headquarters in Fremont, the owner of the LLC lives about 1.5 miles from the site and drives by it all the time. So although he's not a manager or anything else, but he would be watching it too. And he assured me about security, and he said, look, tell the council that what we'd be willing to do is have a recommendation that whatever our order is, and I don't know how we would work that out with the Board of Supervisors, but we would say, look, what we would do is we will make sure that we operate this in the manner we said we were going to do, that we're going to hire people from within the district, that that we are going to make sure secure, that this is not going to be any additional, it's not going to be any haven for any type of potential crime. And what we would do is say, look, we're willing to do this for 1 year on a tentative basis, come back in a year if there's a problem. But again, we also said, look, I've spoken to a couple of people. That's one of the, in fact, I called one of the council members, but she was wondering what I was going to talk about, and I was wanted to get a feedback from individual people as to what someone would say. And a lot of people have told me that a convenience store, it should only, you know, as far as selling beer, they should be somewhere around 10 or 11 o'clock. That's when you should stop selling beer. We would be willing to do that too. Those are all little things that we're willing to do. When I spoke to the woman for ABC, she indicated to me that as far as she was concerned, the time for objections had gone by, but she still was going to give an extra 10 days to June 26th. I didn't call her today before coming over here, but it didn't appear that there's any real objections. The amount of money that my clients are putting in that station is going to be pretty extensive. They're putting in about $3 million. As you can tell, they've done a tremendous job. What they've done is they've pulled out all of the original tanks that were there, even though there wasn't any leakage, but they put in new type of tanks which are environmentally more sensitive and which hopefully will never have any problems in the future. They've also put in a new convenience store that wasn't there before. Now, there is another convenience store, the closest convenience store going down the El Camino, because this is traffic primarily goes down the El Camino, there's a convenience store in Menlo Park, about 1.5 miles, a mile north. It's right near where Menlo College is located. And that's a small convenience store. Now that convenience store, and I went over and took a look, and I've been in that convenience store. It's it's going to be similar to ours, except it's small, and it does sell primarily beer and then ice cream and all the other items that we've been selling. Now, there's...
I'm sorry, are you done, George?
I am. I just have a couple of other questions.
I want to allow time for questions.
Okay, I'm willing to answer any questions there are.
Well, number one, did I hear you say that the timeline to object has expired?
Is that correct? No, the timeline to object to the ABC is expired. However, the ABC still asks for the PCN, pardon me. They still want the recommendation from the Board of Supervisors, but they get objections too. That's an ABC objection.
Okay, John, can you clarify, please? I'm sorry, didn't quite get that.
Chair Lopez, I believe what Mr. Eshu is referring to is that the ABC does have its own administrative processes that operate separate and distinct from the PCN process that you all are being asked to weigh in on. So, in fact, they may have a process whereby if there are individuals who want to lodge with the ABC objections to the issuance of the license, they can do that. It doesn't have any bearing on the 90-day timeline that we actually have and that we're something like perhaps 30 or so days into right now. Okay. Different timelines, different process.
Yeah, I agree. And with respect to the ABC timeline is 30 days. And what they do is the 30 days ran out on June 16th, and what they usually do is give an additional 10 days. That's for the ABC objection. They have no objection at this point. However,
George,
the planning...
Can you talk into the mic, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
The planning, as far as planning is concerned, what we're looking for here is a recommendation that we can go forward, and we would go forward to the Board of Supervisors, which we will go forward with, and what we have indicated is some of the important reasons why we think the recommendation should be given to us. One, I already emphasized the economic impact, which is very positive. Mm-hmm. Number two, it's convenience, and this is a convenience store. Number three, the location of this store. It's on the El Camino, where people stop and get gas, and then will buy some convenience items when they're getting gas. Mm-hmm. It's not really a liquor store in the sense of someone going in to a liquor store, creating another liquor store. That's I think it's a very important point. And then the other thing is, as I told you on the economic impact, the extra jobs we're going to get, and finally, I think that just the fact that we would hire just as an additional, we don't have to do it. I mean, I think we can go through and do what it is. But we would. My client indicated that. He sent an email to me, said, remind everybody that his interest is to hire the additional 15 people from within this Fair Oaks district.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant?
I do. How are you going to make sure that's going to be highly secure?
How what?
How are you going to make sure that the business is going to be highly secure and there's not going to be any incidents
I'll
or
tell you what
crime?
we're doing. Well, we have a new security system. There's going to be 24 cameras that are going to be watching the total area. And the security system, we already had started because there were some security problems at one time at that location. And we worked with the sheriff's office in correcting that before. And as far as the security system is concerned, it's a security system that we're told it worked, and it costs quite a bit, but it's worthwhile. The 24 cameras are working at all times. They operate for 24 hours, and there's monitors that show what goes on, and then you record every event that happens. For instance, if someone goes out, someone does something outside, even in their car, it records it. So that security system is available then for law enforcement if they want to look at whatever is going on.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that that's going to prevent any crime. Somebody comes in drunk and buying beer and starts...
I agree with you. There's nothing that you can do to 100% prevent crime. I wish we could. I heard the officers that were here earlier, they have a whole system of what they try to do. But what you do is, by setting up a security system, and the fact that people know that the security system is there, they are not apt to do anything around there when there's a security system. The security system is an important, just another tool in making sure that you don't have the incidence of crime. You can't guarantee there's not going to be crime, obviously. I've been a lawyer for almost 49 years, and I've seen a lot of crime come and go, but it's just the fact, that's just one of the realities, is that the more security systems you have, the safer things are. In fact, just a little side bit, people sometimes, even without a security system, put a little badge on the door saying that they are protected by a security system, and normally people will not break into that house.
How are you going to ensure that the 18 employee positions are filled by residents in North Fair Oaks?
Well, what we will do is we will prepare applications. Right now, we are in the process of doing the applications, and I haven't worked that out, but I will work it out where we would be able to get the 15 jobs. And we'll be hiring everybody before we go to the Board of Supervisors for approval. So if you want to make that a condition, your recommendation, we're willing to do that and go ahead and hire everybody from this district during that 15 before we get to the Board of Supervisors.
You said something that kind of caught my attention. The owner is saying that place will sell primarily beer, that he or she, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, doesn't expect to sell wine. What that tells, how I interpret that comment, is that they want to target, beer is lesser expensive than wine. And what that tells me, and this is how I received it, that means they want to target that neighborhood. They want to target low income.
Okay, well,
is that the reason why they would not be selling wine and only beer?
No, they're going to be selling, they'll have wine.
But he doesn't anticipate selling wine. That's what I thought I heard you say.
No, what I anticipate, and let me explain that to you. That's a good question, because that's not what happens in a convenience store. I mean, we're talking about...
No, I know convenience stores.
Yeah, this is a convenience store. And in a convenience store, when people go to a convenience store, they usually buy soda, beer more often. There is some wine there, but you don't get as much wine sold in convenience stores. People that buy more wine, for whatever reason, go to the liquor store or go to, K&L for wine. But it has nothing to do with who's buying it. It's people who are driving along the El Camino and stop at a convenience store. I don't think that, but it was never meant that they were targeting one group or another. They're not targeting anybody.
Okay, well, I just was, that's how I interpreted it.
And I apologize if you interpreted
we're
that
going to go, we want to make sure we get all the questions in, so I'm going to, so if you have a question?
Yeah.
And then if there are no other questions from council, we have comments, but I want to take care of our questions first. I have your card, Janet.
Just in how you said it's a eco-friendly convenience store, you know, the move of our community is going more towards creating a place where it's healthy, sustainable, and happy. Why not focus on it being, you know, a convenience store with fresh fruits and vegetables as opposed to different alternatives that we already have, as you notice with the statistics shown. For our youth, it's more easier to get a Snickers than to get a fresh fruit. And we are we're really trying to focus on that. So why not bring in some type of healthy alternatives as opposed to unhealthy alternatives?
I hear what you're saying, and I after work tonight, before coming here, I went to the gym, and I try not to eat Snickers, although once in a while I fall down and eat ice cream. That's my only weakness. But nevertheless, the convenience stores, unfortunately, and don't always have the fresh foods. There was a chain called the Fresh and Easy that even almost went bankrupt, trying to do what you're saying, and I think it's great. And if they can do something else, that's good. They started off doing one thing, and that is what you want to do with gas stations is make them environmentally safer, and they've done that by rebuilding the station. That's one step. But as far as hopefully people aren't going to just congregate there, they're going to come over there to buy gas first. It's a gas station first, over and above anything else, and then after the gas station is a convenience store with it. Whereas a lot of like 7-Elevens are a convenience store first, and then the gas station, they don't have gas. Most of them don't even have gas. It's different. So you have a different type of person that's stopping there to get the convenience items. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah, I would pass that on. It would be a good idea if people start doing that and looking more to healthy alternatives.
I don't have a question, I have comments.
Oh, okay. Open for comments, please.
Okay. So if you and your client had done your homework, you would have found that this council has not supported an off-sale license in over 20 years due to the undue concentration and the the belief that alcohol consumption is connected to domestic violence. And so I think the numbers speak for themselves. We have 3 times the state recommended concentration of off-sale license in our census tract. And the crime supports the fact that it's probably not a good idea to add yet another alcohol outlet.
Yeah.
I don't think that the convenience is supported, seeing there's a grocery store adjacent to that property and a liquor store just across the street. So
No, I did but do my homework, and I'm aware of what the council did. I'm aware of the fact historically at one time, ABC used to send the reports to City of Redwood City, and no one would take action. I went through the whole background, and the distinction that we were making was, you have a liquor store where people go to buy liquor specifically. That's the only thing they're going in there for, and then you have the grocery store where people go to buy groceries, and they're going to maybe buy some wine and beer they have liquor also. They have the full blown. The distinction we're making is we are a convenience store where this is secondary to our primary business. So we're not, I don't think we're, I hate this because I don't condone alcohol, overuse of alcohol. I haven't had a drink at lunchtime ever, and I only drink wine and only about 3 times a week for dinner. So my personal feeling is, but on the other hand, I don't believe that we are the type of businesses that whole concept or whatever the policy was directed at. We think we're different because we're primarily, number one, we sell gas, and we're a major gas station. Number 2, we do have a bunch of other things that people, when they stop to buy gas, will buy. and that's why we think there's a distinction. But I do know the history of this. I've spoken at length with a number of people about the history. Okay. I knew all about back in the old days when the applications would go from the ABC, they'd go into the city of Redwood City, and someone in Redwood City would dump them and wouldn't even respond.
Okay, we have another comment here.
Sure.
So, yes, I agree. We have had this history in our area of having an overconcentration of alcohol outlets. We as a council have worked on that problem for years. There's only so much we can do. I understand that you're saying that this business is different. However, I think that one of the things that makes it different is that it's in conjunction with the sale of gasoline, which means drivers. And I know that the last time we actually had an applicant here, a gas station that wanted to have the exact same kind of sale of beer and wine made possible. This was a gas station on Marsh Road. We had the room filled with people who were opposed to that. And I don't know, I think this one maybe wasn't as well noticed perhaps because there aren't as many residences in the adjacent community, in the nearby vicinity. But this was, you know, there was a tremendous opposition. And I think that the fact that people do stop to buy gas and then also buy beer, it's not a good combination. So in terms of its differentness, that would be my take on it. And I think that was the take on what most of the people in the room the last time we had a similar applicant, their opinion was that yes, you can stop and it's convenient, but then you might drive around the corner and stop and drink that beer or that wine. And people really were adamant that they did not want that in their community and that we have way too many alcohol outlets currently. And I know it's not your fault that that situation exists or your clients, but the fact is that there, as you pointed out, there are many other conveniences, the supermarket, K&L, Beltramos, and many opportunities if somebody wants to go buy beer or wine. So I can't see where there's a justified convenience, and I do see that there is a kind of a danger for our community.
Yeah. Well, let me address that because I know about the Marsh Road situation too. I did a little homework.
You did your homework.
I did my homework. That's why I didn't have to look at my notes. But basically, what we have here is a little different location. The location of this place. And
but it's still a gas station.
I know it's it's still in Fair Oaks. There's no question about that. And I look at the map on it, and I know that it's in Fair Oaks. But the people, most of the people that are going to that station are people who are stopping on the El Camino for gas. Now, if people stop and get a beer and start drinking beer in the parking lot before they leave, the best thing you have is all the cameras will catch them. Okay, so, but hopefully that they're not going to do it. Hopefully if someone's on the way home from work and they stop and get gas and they want to take some beer home, fine. And now whether or not they should be drinking beer, that's a different issue, and I agree that maybe they shouldn't be drinking it. Drinking the beer, but that's what people are going to do, and it's legally they can still do it. So we just think that the location we have and the fact that it's secondary to the primary businesses there at that location, and that what we also have is the positive economic impact. The totality of what we are presenting, I think, makes this a little different than some of the other situations.
Low-income jobs.
I would like to, George, if you can, we have a comment from the public. I have one speaker card. Graciela, do you have, no? Okay. Janet?
I plan on writing a letter to ABC tomorrow. I think this proposal is insane. If you look at the crime graphics, just for that particular location, there's DUIs all the time. The people who have businesses along El Camino get their places trashed. Debbie Torres gets her place trashed by drunks frequently. The very fact that you're saying you've got 24 security cameras, duh, you know, if you need 24 security cameras, there's a problem. Plus, at that exact location, that's where the day laborers hang out. That's where the Waverly apartment building is going to be built for people with addiction and mental problems. It's asinine to put a liquor store or a convenience store there. Plus, that building is incredibly ugly. And I was curious about the fact that Mr. Eshu said that the owner lives around the corner. I looked up the owner on the planning files, and they live in the East Bay. So I don't know quite where that's coming from. But I am very much opposed to that convenience store. And I like beer and I like wine, but I don't drink and drive, and I don't think there should be anything that encourages people to do that. And I don't think that the youth of North Fair Oaks needs to be employed in such a store, because for one thing, they're exposed to the alcohol being there, and secondly, it's dangerous. A convenience store is always getting held up. You've got all kinds of gang people in that particular area. You've got both the Serenos and the Nortenos in that very spot, and it's just stupid to put alcohol there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janet. Any other? I think we're gonna move forward.
I just wanted to add one thing. My client
Is
does
it
live
in-
here in the area.
Oh, okay.
The LLC, I indicated
So
that
is that
earlier.
not a correct
The
statement?
LLC, which is technically the owner of the entity, the LLC is in Fremont. That's where their business is located.
Okay.
But he lives within 1.5 miles, maybe even closer than 1.5 miles to the location. So that's not a question. I can.
Okay, thank you for the point of clarification. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay. Are we at the point of setting up a motion on this issue?
I'll motion that we deny the application for, I'll recommend that we deny.
We can't deny it, though, right?
I could recommend that we deny.
Say it however you want to say it, Dale.
I'll motion that we recommend a denial to their certificate of public convenience or necessity for a off-sale liquor license at 3201 El Camino Real, Menlo Park.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion on the motion? The motion is that we recommend denial of the application. No further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much. If there's no further, that is it. Okay, I would like to call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.